Namaskar friends. Today we will talk about the three doshas and the seven dhatus and how they interact with each other in terms of maintaining and nurturing the body, mind and soul. The word dosha translates into defect, and although they are the constituent element of the body, whenever there is a mismatch in one of the doshas, then there tend to be ailments, and that's why they have been called tridosh or defects. Now, the three doshas, we'll talk about dhatus later. The three doshas are the vat or the vayu, which is the air element, the pitta, fire or solar element, and kapha, which is the moon element, which is basically more to do with the combination of, you can say, water and soil or earth. So that's how the Panch Mahabhut, four of them are covered, right? Fire, earth, air, water. Fire by pit, earth and water by the moon of Kapha, and air by vat. Now, if you want to assign an organ inside the body, because the whole idea is what is outside in the universe is present in a microcosm replica inside our bodies. So the air, if you think of Ida, Pingla, Sushumna, the Ida represents the mind, and the Sushumna and the sun, the moon, and the right Pingla represents the sun or the fire. Similarly, the Vata is represented by the colon or the large intestine. The Kapha is represented by the stomach, and the Pitta is represented, Pitta is bile, right? So Pitta is represented by the small intestine, into which the bile is entered from the liver. So that's basically part of the midgut through the small intestine. So the way to know what characteristics they cause can be understood by looking at the environment around us. Think about the vat, air. What does it do? Air moves. Chanchalam hi manam krish pramati brodhidam. Tanyam nigram maniya varis sudushkaram. The mind is so fleeting, it just blows from air to air. So they are themselves saying, mind equates to vat, vat equates to air. The nature is dry, constantly moving, and cold, because it diffuses all around. So remember, cold, dry, on the move. Aren't these the characteristics of the mind? And when I say mind, you have to remember that mind has various faculties: manas, buddhi, ahankar, chitta. When I say mind, I mean the thought or the manas mind. Okay. When I say pitta, the sun, solar, fire, burning, heat, warm, and anything that comes in its presence will be subdued because it overtakes, hence ego. That's why it is buddhi and ahankar, both are contained within the sun. The buddhi or the delineating intellect, and the ahankar or the ego. Of course, when it overshoots, it becomes arrogance. But for the maintenance of the existence, the muladhar, you need the ego or the ahankar. So that is represented by the fire, solar, pitta. The kapha is mostly reflecting back the pitta. So the kapha is the reflection, like the lunar reflection of the solar light. So that's why it nourishes, it heals. The kapha is represented by the combination of water, which is emotion, and soil, which is stubbornness, but senses. So kapha is like mud, combination of water and soil, and it is containing the emotion and the senses within it, replicated by the stomach in the microcosm of the body. Now let's look at manas, buddhi, ahankar, chitta. Manas is vat, buddhi and ahankar are pitta, the fire, solar, sun. The chitta is the emotional repository. So everything that has happened in the universe is contained in the cosmic consciousness of kapha or chitta. It's the repository of everything that is there. If you think about these in terms of sattva, rajas and tamas, vat is constantly moving, right? It goes around and then comes back where it started. So it is then constantly go in a circle. So that's why it is sattva, the element of balance. It balances the air around. It detoxifies the carbon dioxide, brings in the oxygen, diffusion, right? So the fluidity and the miscibility of air makes it a better circulator than the water. Water can still have diffusion, osmosis, right? But it is much more lighter, much more efficient in circulating the balance, and hence sattva. What is sattva? Sattva, rajas, tamas. Sattva is balance. Rajas is the rocky, fiery rocket ready to take off and break the status quo. And tamas is sticking together more and more of the status quo. Let's keep it going, right? That is tamas. So, the third one, when you want to think about, after the pitta, which is the buddhi and ahankar, is the kapha, which is consciousness. In terms of mind, we were talking about sattva, rajas, tamas. So the tamas is the kapha because it sticks together. Let's keep it. Let's not get rid of it. So those are the three manifestations. Now I want to cover the doshas as you would like to think of that state of mind, because what's the point of this lecture? The point is that you can immediately analyze whether your mind is in too much of vat, pit or kapha, whether your mind is in the mode of sattva, rajas or tamas. What do you want your mind to be in? Well, your mind should be in the left column here all the time. If you want to establish samta bhav and convert the ojas into the shakti, which can flow through the sushumna into samadhi, you want to maintain the samta bhav. So you want to have the energy of vat as clarity, you want to have the energy of pitta transmuted as leader, and kapha as a nurturer or giver. We will talk about it. But first understand what sattva, rajas and tamas does, which you probably know because you guys are advanced listeners here, but I will just recapitulate. Sattva, material modes of nature or gunas in prakriti, are the influencing associations, and whoever comes in contact with them tends to gain the qualities of what it came in contact with. And it's true for everything. If you talk to someone, you are slowly getting primed by their qualities, whether knowingly or unknowingly, and they are imparting some of their qualities. Whoever has the stronger, purer, more intense quality in their personalities, that is the one that will affect the other individual more. Every single interaction. It doesn't depend upon, it depends upon the times you come in contact with, but it depends more on the intensity of the qualities that they were interacting with. That's why you sit next to the gurus, you feel so much elated and sattva and light, as Krishna Das describes when he sits next to Karoli Baba. When he goes home, he becomes the same man. So that's why the more purer the quality, the more intense diffusion of the quality in its surrounding. So you need to come in contact with those qualities. Sattva is balance, maintaining the right equilibrium, equanimity and equiposition. But it is also very light, which means it makes you feel more in your sukshma sharir than your sthul sharir, which reminds you of your natural existence, because sattva is next to sat, chit, anand. Once you get rid of vat from the sat, what is left? It's sat, chit, anand. So sattva is very close, but it very closely resembles the quality of vat, which is air. Rajas, rocky, rocket, this is the energy that will shake you out. It's like an earthquake or a volcano that will just shake you out and reset everything, because it resets it to sattva, the balance, right? That's why Rajas is a very strong energy. And in Kali Yuga, where there is a preponderance of sensual overload in the Kapha realm, over emotional people, over sensual people, having lot of addictions, you need to have a rocky energy. Sattva won't be able. Vayu is not strong enough to change the inertia of tamas. To break the inertia of tamas, you need this escape velocity, high momentum force of rajas, the rocky energy that will break and overtake the existing inertia. The status quo is broken. That is why it is represented by pitta or the fire solar energy, right? Because it gives all the energy. It will quickly burn whatever it comes in contact with. Third is tamas. The tamas is a sticky thing. Oh, no, I want to just stay there. I don't want to go. Let's keep it together. Let's not go anywhere. So too sticky, too dependent, too attached, overly attached, puppy. So that kind of thing is tamas. Of course, we love it because who doesn't love attention? But long run, it's going to impede your growth. Your spiritual growth is totally destroyed. And guess what? Sat Chit Anand is close to consciousness. Tamas is the opposite end of the spectrum, close to Prakriti. So from a Jiva, which we are somewhere here, you want to become Shiv. From Jeev to Shiv. But you can become from Jeev to Jar if you go too much in the direction of Tamas. That's why the inertia, ignorance, indolence, darkness of Tamas has to be broken through the power of Rajas and then established in Sattva to enter the Sushumna into Samadhi when you distill the ojas from the doshas using the fire of Rajas of Pitta through meditation. But first let's understand how whenever you are in a state of mind, you should be able to think of yourself whether that state of mind and any emotion, any thought that comes to your mind, I can categorize them as either Vat, Pit, Kapha in Sattva, Rajas or Tamas. No matter. Every single time. So let's think about Vat first. Vat is Vayu. It's the thought. So you have to actively think something. That's why Dhyan Yoga, you have to concentrate. It doesn't come to you directly, at least in the beginning. So Dhyan is concentrate planning. Professional planning is through Vat. And the thought can be in the realm of clarity when it is in Sattva. You have very clear thinking. You have considered the pros and cons and you have, after clear, logical, rational decision making of the left mind, you have come to extreme clarity and you then stick with it because you have trust and verified, as Ronald Reagan says. Now that is clarity. You will say Tamas represents loyalty. What is wrong with that? Now the problem is it is andha anukaran. It is blind faith. Now you cannot have blind faith. You need to have some sort of evidence coming to you either through the scriptural teachings of a guru or personal experiences that you had of your own. If I believe in Vedas, I believe in the power of yoga, it is because I have had some personal experiences and some things that I've gained over the years. So no matter what you say, it's not going to change my mind because, hey, experience beats evidence every single time. No matter what you present as evidence, if I've experienced something myself in my life, I am going to believe it no matter what, even if I am not able to convince you to believe it because you need your own personal set of experiences. That's why somewhere there has to be a leap of faith, but you have to verify it down the road to know that it is true and you are not being confounded by the information that you are being provided. So loyalty is trust without verify. Clarity is trust with verify. So either cases, there is faith. Karna was very loyal to Duryodhan. But Tamas, Duryodhan is full of Tamas. So where did he go? Karna had to die. Now Arjun is also very dedicated. But he is asking for all the evidence. Took 2 hours on the battlefield. This guy did not fight and is asking questions in the middle of the battle fight to Lord Krishna. What is this guy doing? He is trying to verify, like, are you sure? Should I fight? And keeps asking him questions because he wants to establish that he has got the clarity, because that's how we'll go into Satchitanand. So always trust with verify. Trust but verify. Now when you cannot trust and you cannot verify, that thought process is in confusion. And this one can go into the direction of clarity. Confusion can become clarity with the right evidence and experiences, or in the presence of more tamasic elements, the gunas that you come in contact with, it can turn into andha anukaran, the blind faith loyalty. Come to the solar fire energy of Pitta. This dosha is a fire energy. Look at me, ahamkara energy, right? So ahankara is all about establishing the presence of self in the crowd, standing out from the crowd. But when it is combined with intellect, which is delineating intellect, the dharma of Buddhi, then it becomes leader. So here you have the distinction of right versus wrong, and you pursue the right, you influence the other people to follow the right path. Classic example, Lord Krishna. Yadada chariti shreshtas devetaro jana sayat pramanam kurute lokas tadunu vartate. Whatever path the righteous men lead, the other people will follow them. And lots of times Krishna says, don't argue with people, because when you argue, you're going in the mode of Vat. Vat is, air is less powerful than Pitta in terms of converting things around, like the energy of Rajas. So any single day, energy of Rajas will transmute faster than the energy of Sattva, which wants to create balance. So Pitta is stronger than Vat on any given day if you are talking about the sheer intense power. And that's why Krishna says that if you want to change someone, don't engage in arguments with them, just do the right thing in front of them. Now, the Pitta, when you do not have the delineating intellect of what is right and wrong, and you're somehow stuck in your past cyclical habitual habits, then you are not able to break through. You are wanting to do something with your power of leadership, but you're not getting results. Guess what happens? There's frustration. So there's a lot of anger, pent up energy, impulse inside you. And when this just keeps growing because it cannot manifest itself as a leader, it starts to take the opposite polarity. When you cannot hit the Sushumna, the Sahasrara, you will always dip down. There's only two paths you can take in life, the high road or the low road. You cannot just stay there stagnant, because Prakriti is Jagat Dvi Parivartate. It's prone to change. So whatever is more attractive, the magnet of Sahasrara pulling you up to the Sushumna, or the power of this Swadhisthana pleasure seeking you down towards Muladhara. That is the direction. So either you will become Satchitanand, more consciousness through the upward pull of the Sattva, or you will become more dull, listless, exhausted, Jad Prakriti through the power and pull down the Muladhara and the Swadhisthana. So that's why when you cannot become a leader, the anger turns into hatred. You become a hater. And the impulse turns it into violence. So the energy, the fire burns in the sun, and fire can also burn in the coal. But look at the coal. There's so much of soot and carbon monoxide that is produced when the coal burns. And when sun burns, hydrogen, helium, nuclear fusion, it is just full of bright, bedazzling light that brings life and health to everybody around. So it all depends on the quality of the fire. Is the fire going to create more smoke, soot? Then it becomes a hater and violent. Anger is converted into hatred. Impulse, bad impulse turned into violence, cruelty, slaughter of animals, murder, rape, all those kind of things. So because the leader has lost his intellect, the dharma, distinguishing power between right and wrong. Third is kapha. Kapha is the combination of water and soil or earth. And that's why you can think of it as mud. It is very sticky. And that's the nature of kapha. It likes to stick around. So in terms of relationships, kapha is best seen as either a nurturer, a controller, or a hoarder. So think about the way you think about your parents, the way you think about your spouses, kids. Most of the times you want to be a nurturer or a giver. So to the kids you sacrifice yajnadanta, right? You don't take things yourself, you give it to them. So that is in the mode of giver, because you know that you will get happiness, the light feeling you get from sattva. That's the nurturer giver of the kapha. Now, if it has doubts about the things that it is giving to the person is worthy of the gift. Happens very commonly in the case of wife. You become a controller in your spouse. Look here, for the kids, you love them, they are cute, daddy I love you. You give them all the things you can, good tuition, money. You are a nurturer and giver. For the wife, same age, I don't know. She sometimes cooks food for me and sometimes she asks us to go to a restaurant to eat. Sometimes she's asking me to do the dishes which I don't want to do. So then you start playing the game of manipulation when you use the Vata energy. But as an emotional force, you become controller. You want her to stick around, but you want her to be manipulated at the same time. So that is the controller force. And because Kapha in any case wants the other person, in Rajas mode at least, to be at the beck and call. So you listen to what I'm saying and we'll stick together. We will go through this life, but let's do what I tell you to do. Because there's this Pitta fire trying to control, and when it is trying to tell you more manipulation of the Vata energy, it becomes a manipulator. But core Kapha is a controller. Now the third energy, of course, is the Tamas, which is sticking too much, because here you saw there was anger. Here it is more like greed. So you will see lots of people hoarding on to stuff. Never have they used their second TV or a second radio or a second fridge, second car, but they keep buying stuff and throwing it in the basement or the closet. 10 shoes, and I've seen women have 20, 40 shoes, and I don't know if they really get a chance, because I don't know how can you wear all those shoes in one single life, with due respect to all the matas and bahans, but they tend to accumulate more. You see a lot in the older folks, especially if you had a poor upbringing, you tend to become a hoarder. If you have been a Holocaust victim, of course you haven't had any of the luxuries, so you might become a hoarder, but that actually is the energy of Tamas. You see here the arrows. The Sattva is the arrow of the snake. It goes up and down, up, down. So it kind of just rotates within itself, the Vat circle. That's what Sattva represents. Rajas is trying to break down, up. Let me either go up or down. I cannot stay here. I cannot stay in the status quo. That's what Rajas is doing. Pitta fire. And the Tamas, you see all the arrows are going towards the center. T, 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 going in the center. Let's keep it here. Let's keep it together. We are not going to go away, and we are good with what we have. This sense of domestic violence is a great example of Tamas Kapha, because you stick with a bad person because you have been used to that person for so long, and you don't know if there's any better option for you, and you don't get out of it a bad relationship until you know what your potential is, until you find the fire of Rajas of the Pitta, which will eventually move into the zone of clarity, nurturer, giver, or a leader. So my friend, those are the three things. Now before I go into Dhatus, I would like to tell you three kinds of mental energies that are correlated with the doshas. The Vat represents Prana. Prana doesn't here imply the prana of the body, but it's prana of the mind. So it's not the prana, pan, saman, vyan, udan. This is more the life forces in the mental realm. So prana, if there is too much of vayu, what happens? You have fear, anxiety, worry, because the thought is just racing all the time. So the intellect cannot absorb anything. There is loss of focus, loss of memory and concentration. And the emotional mind, now it cannot receive any emotions, so whatever the senses are there, the mind is telling, oh, are you sure you are all right? That person might kill us. That job we might lose. Oh, I think I'm having pain in my leg now. Because that is the senses getting deprived, and that is what happens when you have too much of fear, anxiety, worry. That's how fibromyalgia happens, because the Vat Vayu cannot be dispersed. It's too much in the mind. It's going everywhere microscopically in your joints to cause arthritis, in your nerves to cause the frazzling of the nerves, the neuralgia, and hence the standard trigger points and the hyperalgesia, or the sensation of increased pain, which is true. They perceive this pain. We might make fun of them, but they have true pain, which has happened from the transgression of thought into the other doshas. And hence there is sensory pain, fibromyalgia. That is too much of prana. Too much of prana, racing thoughts, palpitations in your heart, fibromyalgia on your sense organs of perception, loss of focus, concentration, memory, listless, dull. That is what excess of prana does. What about excess of pitta? Pitta is called tej. Prana, tej, oj. Tej is brightness, right? So that's the fire of transmutation. But pitta has to be in balance with the intellect, dharma. When you have power, there comes great responsibilities. If you're just using power without any responsibility, you're cascading the Me Too movement, right? So you have to use power with responsibly. That is Tej. If you have too much of Tej, of fire, what does it do to the thoughts? It burns the thoughts. You have no thought process. You have a sense of entitlement. You don't have the questioning, intellectual curiosity anymore of knowing whether you're right or wrong. You are deluded to believe that whatever you say, whatever you do is the right. So it becomes a mode of tamas. You're not questioning whether you are right or wrong, even if you're a great person, because everybody is touching your feet. That's how delusions of grandeur happen. That's how the great people fall, because they don't question and they don't have humility. One thing which arrogance does not have, the sun or the fire element does not have, is the humbleness or humility, because it has to prove its point that it is the strongest, biggest, brightest. That is the Tej. Tej will burn the thoughts, you will become thoughtless, entitled. Tej will burn the ojas, the life forces. So you will be feeling more weak in all the Sattva Dhatus. We'll talk about it. Third one is Oj. Oj is the distillate of the life saps or Dhatus. So you have all these life saps in various levels of concentration, ultimate concentration of Shukra or the semen. First one is the Rasa. But Oj represents the distillate. And once you have this distillate, basically referring to the Shukra energy, that one goes in every single cell and you are very happy, elated, joy, blissful. And then the upgradation, transgression of the Shakti energies happens through the gas stations of the chakras, which you have to conquer, the 7 of them, until you flow through the central tube of Kumbhaka, of Vishnu, of the Sthita, through the Sushumna, into the Samadhi. What it essentially means is that you can use power of meditation to convert the ojas into Kundalini Shakti, to awaken the Sahasrara, to go into Samadhi. But if you have too much of Tej, it will burn the liquid of Oja. So there is dryness, you have apathy, anhedonia. Okay, now let's come to the Ojas, 7 of them. So whatever we eat is digested by of course, the saliva, the alimentary canal, the stomach, intestines, colon. So that happens in different realms. And there is process of concentration of nutrients according to Ayurveda, and every nutrient, when it has been met in sufficient quantities, will help the formation of its second distillate nutrients, from more to less. That's why you see the body has more rasa or plasma compared to blood or rakta. The rakta here refers to the blood cells. And the color, of course, rakt, red, comes from the red cells, but rasa is plasma. The first element that is formed is the rasa. You can think of it as the chyle, which is semi-digested food in the intestine, or some people call it the plasma, which is the portion of the blood which is clear with all the proteins. But basically, it's a nourishing, protein-rich fluid. And when the rasa is depleted, you have more dryness of the mucous membrane, less of protein, so there's cachexia. The rakt is the blood cells. What do the blood cells do? The red cells help you with oxygenation and energy. The white cells fight the infection, and the platelets help to clot the blood. If you have excess of red cells, you get high blood pressure, lymphoma, leukemia. You have excess of white cells, you get abscesses, fighting the infections constantly which are not existing, too much of inflammation. And if there's too much of blood cells, there's too much of clotting, thrombosis, which itself is a manifestation of tumors. What happens with the third level? Mansa is mans, muscle. If you have too much of muscles, you can have formation of knots. Like women, you will hear they will get fibroids. There's formation of muscle tumors, benign or malignant. And of course, there can be miscarriages from formation of fibroids. And if there is too little of muscles, there is emaciation. The fourth is medha or the fat. Now, fat is the transition between muscle and bone. So fat represents the connective tissue here, not just the adipose tissue, which is of course a kind of connective tissue, but connection. Let's put it together, because kapha, right? Everything should be sticking together. So it will represent itself as ligaments, tendons, anything that is a connective tissue in your body is basically medha. And medha is going to increase lubrication, flexibility. And if you don't have enough of the synovial fluid, ligaments and tendons are weak, there's laxity of joints, crackling joints, prone to dislocations, fractures, things of that nature. Next is of course asthi, which is bone. Asthi is formation of strong bones. So if you have too much of asthi, you have too much of formation of teeth, or even you have brittleness in your teeth like fluoride, and you can have too much of formation of bones, bone spurs, you can get arthritis, all the arthralgias and the bone pains. If there's too little, obviously there is less formation of bones. There's osteoporosis also can happen, which is the weakening of the bones, demineralization of bones, loss of enamel of the teeth. From white shiny teeth, they're turning into yellow dentine structure of the teeth. So that's things. Majja is the marrow, and marrow is basically representing the pluripotent hemopoietic stem cells, or the cells that are forming the reticulocytes, or the red cells, the white cells, platelets. Everything in the rakta is formed from the majja, but also it helps to form the asthi or the bone cells, right? And we know that majja also has these T cells, because T cells are what? T helper cells, immunity. So majja has a strong role in immunity. If you have too much of majja, you are becoming hyperimmune. You are becoming autoimmune disorders. You see in this world today full of autoimmunity, psoriasis, people have skin disorders, colon problems, even cancer is a form of autoimmunity. You're fighting your own cells. And there is so much of eczema, and you can think about inflammatory bowel diseases, uveitis, scleritis, anything that is autoimmune in your body, thyroid disorders for that matter, represents excess of T cells or immune cells, and that can cause majja. If there's too little of majja, you cannot fight infections. So there's more prone to infections, catching infections, cough, cold easily, that kind of problem. Last is shukra. Shukra represents semen, or the power of the ovum, which basically represents the power of creation and procreation. If you are going to lose it to the swadhisthana by seeing beautiful girls every single time you blink your eye, then it's going to be creation, and there will be lots of kids around in the world. Or you can use that power selectively once in a while, in which case the shukra is getting concentrated and powerful. The kids will be more powerful in that case, the less you have copulation. But you can totally abandon it in the pathway of brahmacharya or buddha, in which you just transmutate the power of the ultimate oja, shukra, the ultimate dosha, which is transmutated through the central tube of Vishnu, Sushumna, into the Sahasrara, through the power of meditation, through the power of pitta, through the power of the solar energy, tej. So tej can transmutate oja into kundalini shakti, which can be awakened through the chakras, flowing through the central tube of Sushumna, not getting deviated by, because the balance of Ida and Pingla, flowing through the central tube of Sushumna into the Sahasrara. That is how Samadhi is attained. So those are the 7 things. Now let us see what those pranas do when there is kind of imbalance. Because of course, we talked about balance or sattva. So you want to keep the vat in clarity, the pitta in leadership mode, and kapha into nurturer. So ideally, you should be nurturing and giving in your relationships to your spouses and kids, parents. You should be a leader, a motivator for the people who are weaker around you, who can be your followers or people who look upon you, either at work or at home. And you want to have clarity in what you are thinking, because you are showing them a path. So before you show the path, you must trust and verify that the path you are showing, either through your own experiences or through the experiences that have been provided to you through education, evidence, scriptures, Vedas, that it is the right sattva, path of balance. So clarity. You have to be a nurturer, you have to be a leader, and you have to have clarity. If you have these 3 mental elements at your mind level, you are going into Satchitanand. You don't have to keep coming back into life after and after to face Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi. So let's see what happens when these 3 mental faculties, the excess of vat as the prana, excess of pitta as the tej, and excess of kapha as the oj, manifest themselves. When you have excess of prana or vat, there is too much of thoughts, thoughtless mind, racing thoughts in the mind. It kills the buddhi, so there is no focus and concentration. You cannot build a memory. Recall power is gone. And then at the Kapha level, your senses are totally destroyed because you're constantly looking for any damage or damage or damage. When they're on lookout for the ligands, they feel it even when they're not there. That's why this sensory pain, fibromyalgia, and any somatization or conversion disorder, anything where you are experiencing too much pain, functional disorders, those are excess power of the Vayu manifesting on the Kapha to cause sensory pain. And when it suppresses the Pitta, it suppresses the intellect, so loss of focus, memory, no recall, no memorization, no grasping power, not losing the power to speak totally. And Vata, he is too much talkative all the time, making little sense because he is too frightened. So that's why mania in medicine is the classic example of pure Vata. And when you have dementia, that is too much of Vata combining with Pitta. And when you have fibromyalgia, you have combination of Vata with Kapha, suppression of the sensory sense. Now what happens when Tej is too much? Think about it. On a bright, scorchy, sunny day, how long can you stand in the summer sun? 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, you get a heat stroke. So this fire is going to burn the thought process of Vata. So you are not able to think clearly. You are constantly in the mode of confusion. Now when the Teja falls on the mucus and the nurturing bowl of vessel in the Oja, all these doshas, it burns everything. Ras, Rakt, Mans, Med, Asthi, Majja, Shukra, it burns everything. So you become full of mental and physical exhaustion. You cannot be emotional. Your emotions are really distraught. That's why you have anhedonia at the sensual level, and at the I should say anhedonia at the emotional level, not able to experience pleasure or pain, but more so anhedonia for pleasure, right? You're not stoic. Stoic would be sattva. You're more anhedonic, which is loss of sense of pleasure. Pain you feel all the time. Oh yeah, pain I feel. Pleasure I cannot feel. That shows you are emotionally distraught from an overflow of ojas. Now, when it attacks the senses, then the senses are getting too addicted. So look at the difference. There can be over suppression of the air of Vat on the senses to deplete the senses, to cause them to be in modes of aesthesia, burning pain, some sort of pain, or tinnitus, sensations which are not there are being perceived. Vishayas, too many Vishayas. Or senses in their own purity can go and run amok as sensory overload, in which case you have sensual addictions. Think of smoking, sex, alcohol, drugs, gambling, meat eating. What are the 4 major sins of Kali Yuga when Kali Yuga started? We know that. Eating meat, drinking alcohol, sexual promiscuity, and the 4th is gambling. Of course, gold is represented as one, woman and gold, but those are the 4 main. So those 4 are sensual addictions: smoking, alcohol, drug, sex, in the mode of overflow of ojas on your senses. So that's why prana, fear, anxiety, worry, sensory pain. The tamas of kapha, when it is overflowing as, that is the thought of the vata. I was talking about here pranic energy. So pranic energy is fear, anxiety, worry. If you get too much of the energy of pitta, I should say here, this is the energy of the pitta, which you can call tej. Pitta is tej, and this is prana, and this one is oj. So the tej of the pitta, when it is too much, then you lose the distinction. What was the power of intellect? Distinguishing right versus wrong. You think you are only right. You don't examine the other side of the coin. You don't listen to other people, too opinionated. That can cause arrogance, delusion of greatness. And of course, because you know the Surya Nadi, the Pitta not only represents the intellect, but also the Panch Bhautik Sharir, the body. So when the body is burnt out, you have physical exhaustion, but at the intellectual level, you remain a narcissist, and a deluded narcissist, if I say. Now, narcissist is one who thinks he's great. If you are Nikola Tesla and you are a narcissist, it's fine. But if you are having an IQ of 10 and you think you are great, you are dumb and you think you are Einstein, that is a bigger problem. And that is the problem of excess teja. You have lost your delineating intellect and you have lost the strength of your body. Yet, because you have this delusion of grandeur, you want to be lord of the rings. So that's the power of Teja. Physical arrogance on the body, delusional, the delusion and loss of delineating, discriminating intellect, right versus wrong, not able to decide the dharma. So that's why it is the law, the excess of Teja. And it of course burns the Oja too. Now if there's excess of Oj, you become a sensory glutton, you eat too much, you have too much of sensual desires, you become addiction to smoking, alcohol, drugs, and at the mental level, because there's overflow of emotion, you become too emotional. You are a maudlin, you start crying when you are seeing a small puppy, or you saw a movie, you start crying for no reason. And of course, crying for divine reasons or a good reason helps you clear your heart and make it pure. But what's the point of having overflow of emotion on vishayas which are not going to cause divine elevation? So you might feel the sweetest pleasure is pain, but only when you're trying to reach the divine, not for this kapha emotional maudlin nature that you have developed. So that's why the mental lethargy and addiction are hallmark of overflow of oja. The prana, when it overflows, you have fear, anxiety, worry on the mental spectrum, loss of memory, concentration on the intellect spectrum, and sensory pain on all over your body, somatization, conversion. And when the teja of the pitta burns, you are becoming a deluded animal and you have a weakened body. A very good slok in Gita kind of surmises everything here. And you have heard me say that many times, never gets old because it's applicable every single time I think about it. It starts with Dhyaito Vishyan Punsa, Sangesh Tesu Upjayate, Sangat Sanjayate Kama, Kamat Krodha Vijayate, Krodhat Bhati Sammoha, Sammohat Smriti Vibrima, Smriti Banshat Buddhi Nasho, Buddhi Nashat Pranashati. Dhyayate. Dhyayate is thought. Dhyayate Vishyan Punsa. Repeatedly keep thinking about something. Sangesh Teshu Upjayate. You have constant rumination of something, you get attached to the Vishayas, objects of sensual gratification. Sangat Dhyayate Vishamsa Sangesh Teshu Upjayate. Sangat Sanjayate Kama. Once you have attachment to the senses, because this is the kapha element, right? So keep contemplating again and again on the Vishaya, you get attachment. Sangat Sanjayate Kama. Now from vak, it goes into attachment and it comes in the mode of kama. Kama is desire. Desire is representing tej. So dhyayata, contemplation. See how contemplation liquidates vasana when you think about your weakness and pratikarma. If you start contemplating on objects of sensual gratification, smoking, drinking, sex, then you are falling back into the sensual trap of attachment. So, dhyayate vishyan punsa, sangesh teshu upjayate, sangat sanjayate kama, kamat krodha vijayate, anger, krodhat bhavati sammoha. You go back into delusion because you become a hater and a violence, you have delusion. Just like loyalty, you have delusion, darkness. So, krodhat bhavati sammoha, sammohat smriti vibrima, intellect or dharma is totally destroyed. And then smriti banshat buddhi nasho, the intellect is destroyed. Buddhi nasho pranashyati, you fall, devolution of the soul. What does devolution of the soul mean, by the way? Devolution of the soul means you are becoming less and less aware. Awareness is sattva. Continue the mechanical mode is tamas. Why do we say that don't keep working every single day of your life when you are young? You have three wealths, three things: time, money, and health. When you are young, you don't have money. You have time and health, but you can't do anything about it. When you are middle age, you have time, maybe you have wealth, money, and health, but you don't have time. You are working every single day until you get old, at which point you don't have health. You have only time and money, but you cannot eat good things. You cannot go to the cruise ships. You have lost because you have dementia. Janm mrityu jara vyadhi. Everything has a disease and old age has grappled you. So you have lost the health. So try in your middle ages, when you have a functional mind, to be content in sattva and not chase all the things more than what you need, because that way you are losing time. Time is the only thing that from the day we are born to the day we die, it's going to decrease. Health, you can transiently make it better, but of course, at the time of death, it is going to fall as well. Wealth is something you can negotiate. Either you are very smart, you can make your money in 4 hours, or you don't want to work extra hard to live like a pig and be greedy. So if you live within your limits, you live in sattva, lightheadedness, sukshma sharir, happy, and that is why you should limit your work hours only for so much that you need, and spend more time with your kids, family, and towards your divine growth. Okay, my friends. So I think I'm going to summarize here. On the mental plane, just like the physical plane, there is role of the Panch Mahabhut, four of them at least. The Akash is the vacuum, which is fire, earth, air, water. The fire solar energy is represented by the Pitta. The Vat is representing the air element, and the water and earth are represented by Kapha. Nature of Vat is antithesis of Kapha. Vat wants to circulate everywhere in Sattva. Kapha wants to stick together and not go anywhere in the mode of Tamas. The Pitta is the only power that has the power to transmutate Vata and the Kapha, because it can burn it. But most of the times, while we are living in this body, Panch Mahabhut Sharir, which is composed of Kapha, Tamas, we want to convert the life juices of the doshas, the dhatus, 7 of them, into the power of samadhi through contemplation, because contemplation liquidates the vasanas of the senses. And that way, through contemplation, you want to use the power of tej or pitta to go up all the chakras into sushumna, through the sushumna into the sahasrara or samadhi. And Dhyaito Vishyan Punsa is a great lecture that tells you that when you contemplate repeatedly, you will get sensual attachment. Sensual attachment will create desire for more. The desire will lead to anger when it is not met. Even when it is met, it will lead to more and more asking for lust and greed. So either way, it's going to flare up lust, anger, and greed. Three vidham narkastham dwaram nashnamatmana kama krodha lobha tasma aditattaram tejet. Lust, anger, and greed are the 3 doors to hell, which you have to avoid at all times, because otherwise the devolution of soul. Instead of jiva to Shiva, you are going jiva to Jad. Instead of becoming the cosmic consciousness of Shiva, the soul or the Atman is going to become a Jad, element, stone, So that's why the desire called lust, anger, and greed, which will lead to loss of the delineating intellect, which is the part of the intellect Buddhi in Pitta. And that once destroyed, a person has to fall down from Jiva to Jad instead of going Jiva to Shiv, using the path of Sattva, Satchit Anand into Samadhi. Dhanyavad.